In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting July 22nd, 2020 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform in accordance with the town's policy and directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphones unless they have something to say or are participating in a committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or *9 by phone. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, James Terry, hereby call this meeting to order. All commission votes will be taken by roll call. We will start with an attendance roll call of commissioners. When I announce your name, please reply. James Terry, present. Casey Winslow. Andrew Boardman.
Make sure you're unmuted.
Casey is just joining.
Okay.
Andrew Boardman, now unmuted and present.
Thank you. Peter Wallace.
Yes.
Casey, are you available?
I am here. Sorry, I was
Thank you.
late.
The first item on our agenda is the review and approval of minutes from the June 10th, 2020 Public Works Commission. Are there any comments or questions?
I move we approve.
Can you state your name, please?
Peter Wallace.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
Andrew just mouthed it.
Someone was muted, Andrew.
I'm trying to be good about being muted. Andrew Boardman seconds.
Okay. There's a roll call for approval. James Terry, yes. Casey Winslow. You need to unmute, Casey.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Andrew Boardman.
Yes.
Andrew Boardman, yes. Peter Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. We are likely to have future meetings in August and September, but as of the current time, we do not have any dates settled. So we will have future communications as to whether and when they will occur. Anything else on that at this time, Alan?
No, I will say, we'll talk a little bit about the town meeting schedule, but just so everybody understands, town meeting is, I would say, a plan for September 13th, the rain date on the 14th. There's going to be some hearings in August. They're still being sort of crafted as far as mini hearings, because it's been a while since the last FinCom and select board hearings that usually are done within a month or two of town meeting. So I'll keep the board posted, and we'll plan any August meeting accordingly so we can be prepared if need be. So I think a little flexibility would be good on that.
Great, thank you. So our first item on the action agenda is 915 Walden Street, the DCR public sewer in the public way. Alan?
Okay, well, I'll give a quick introduction, just basically on the purpose of this. DCR is planning an upgrade to the bathhouse at the Walden Pond State Reservation and filed an NOI with the town of Concord for this work. During the review of this work, the engineering division discovered that there was an existing sewer force main that's privately owned and used for DCR purposes that went across Route 126. When we identified this issue, it occurred to us that there are policies in place with the Public Works Commission involvement to approve such utilities. And Steve Dukran, town engineer, has done some research and background work on that. But I think what we'd like to do is have DCR representative sort of just provide a little bit of an overview of the project. And then Steve Dukran can speak a little bit to the policy issues. And we see it more as a housekeeping issue, but why don't we give DCR a rep? I'm sorry, it was, I don't know who we have. We've got, yeah, thank you, Zach, for All right, so if you possibly like to give an overview of the project, and Steve Dukran, and thank you, Nat, as well. I guess you two represent the project. And Steve Dukran, if you want to get online too, so we can see you and participate. So,
All right, and please let me know if you can't hear anything, and I'll adjust accordingly. So the overall project is sort of stems from this need to have accessibility down to the beach, because right now, as you guys know, there's that long sort of ramp that goes down that's too steep. So the overall project, which includes the utilities, is sort of two pieces. It's upgrading the bathhouse and also building an accessible boardwalk. And all this was in the NOI that the Natural Resources Commission has reviewed and approved. So during the course of this work, it's, we're going to upgrade utilities, including this force main. There's going to be a new septic system put in for the bathhouse. So the configuration there is that it goes from the current bathhouse through a force main all the way to the system behind the visitor center, the new visitor center. And then from there goes to sort of a remote field over in the old trailer park. The new bathhouse, which is being relocated so it's closer to the beach, so people who are using the beach have an accessible path to the bathhouse and the facilities. We'll put in a new system that will tie into this force main. So we're leaving all the pieces that are within the right of way there and up to the bathhouse. And so this is really just housekeeping. So there's sort of, record of where it is and all that for everyone. We're putting in a new access manhole that's out of the right of way, sort of halfway on the force main, because it's pretty long from behind the visitor center to the new bathhouse. And then when the new bathhouse is being built, from that access manhole to the new bathhouse will be a new force main line.
Zach, can I show? I have an image that might help the board. If you want me to share that, maybe.
Sure. I don't know if I could share a screen too. I have a site plan, a proposed site plan as well.
Is that helpful? Can you see that?
Yeah. So it's a little small. I don't know if you could zoom in just on the main beach area. That might be a little more helpful. So where it says main entrance, that's the current entrance for visitors down to the beach, which is what DCR calls the E ramp. It's the emergency ramp down to the beach, in addition to the main pedestrian access. So it's wide enough for an ambulance to get down to the beach, and also very steep. So the new bathhouse is going to be close to under the A and we're in Main Beach from where it is. So it's going to be sort of moved to the right side of the page there. The force main currently runs from that dot of where it says seasonal bathhouse, sort of almost straight to where the visitor center is, which is on that dotted line where it says state police, right in there. So this line was put in, we believe, around 1947 ish. So it's been there for a while. Does that sort of orient everyone on what we're referring to? Any questions on sort of overall project or the force main in particular?
Will there be any impact to the roadway and nearby the roadway?
Yes, when not from the force main directly, also part of this project, which was an early action piece, was supposed to start in the spring, but with the COVID, it's sort of been delayed. But part of that was reconfiguring water service to the bathhouse, which I know is something you guys asked for during the visitor center project, because the water line comes off sort of a secondary main. So a new water line will sort of force some work in the street.
I think the water main was sort of somewhere over here. coming off of the pipe that goes up is dedicated to Pine Hill Reservoir. That's up this direction. So they're going to clean that configuration up. And Zach's correct. It was a few years ago when they were doing some improvements to the visitor center, we had requested that, and we knew it was going to be sort of phase 2. So we held off on that. So.
Right. So the plan for that early action piece was to do all the work in the road. So when the bathhouse and accessible path were being built, there wouldn't be any more impact to the right of way. Sort of do it all at once.
Right, and so I think we would need to come to the town for a street opening permit for that work.
So do you have anticipated time frame for this?
Yeah, we do. I mean, so we're aiming to start the project in the fall. We actually have a contractor on board. He's we're hoping to have that started, I think in September.
Are there other questions from the commissioners?
Well, Alan, you're recommending that we approve the grant of location?
Yeah, so I'd like Steve Dukran to just sort of help the board understand a little bit of the background. Steve, if you can talk about some of the research. We're trying to make it consistent with policies. And again, it's housekeeping, but I think it's worth hearing from Steve a little bit of what we're getting out of this. Steve, are you able to kind of show yourself? And oh, you there? Yeah.
I'm there. I'm here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let me just go a little bit into why we need this approval and some of the policies regarding getting it. So as Alan mentioned, it's more of a housekeeping measure, seeing that the sewer has been in place since 1947-48. We don't have any records on this plan. We don't have any records regarding the location of it in the town's office, as well as to any documentation regarding ownership and responsibilities. And that's what we want to get. It's important to document these things, any underground lines in the right of way, for when we want to coordinate other work, other projects in the area, as also for any safe digging. You don't want to hit an unknown pipe, and have a problem in the future. We continue as a department and as division of engineering division to update all of infrastructure in our streets for that very purpose, so that we have complete records of what we have in the street. And we do so by putting everything in GIS, which is very user-friendly and which we can make available to all parties who are interested in what's in the street. It is also important for us to have the owner of each utility agree to properly maintain, to properly operate, their facilities, and as well as to be in agreement to make reasonable accommodations for when we want to do public projects, especially for municipally owned facilities, whether it's water, sewer, drainage, sidewalks, widening. Sometimes these things necessitate moving a line or adjusting a line in the street, and we need to know that the owners are agreeable to do so. And so that's another good reason for having to have an instrument in place to have that agreement. So bringing this request to this committee is the right one, because your board is the body that's been given authority to approve any private utilities in the public right of way, and as opposed to public utilities which seek a select board grant of location. A policy was drafted in 1998 by the town, and making this commission the approving body on private utilities. And it was well crafted, actually. It's a very comprehensive one, and it requires a lot of input from other boards, like the planning board, the health board, even select board. And that that policy has been implemented and used for a number, maybe 4 or 5 requests since. And some of you on the board would remember the last one that came in 2016, 2017 for the Bemis family irrigation request on Liberty Street. So that wasn't too far back. And so we'll continue to use this policy for any future requests for new installations. However, for this one, seeing that it's simply for a housekeeping measure and just to get records in place for good reasons, we think that it's more appropriate to just have the board retroactively approve and allow that this facility continue to exist in the street. As long as they provide us good record information, as-built record information, and we come with an agreement that we can record that carries the responsibilities of the department, the DCR, regarding having the sewer in the street.
Thanks, Steve.
So, Zach, is there anything that you want to add, or Matt?
No, I mean, I think we covered sort of why we're here and the project. So
Yeah, I agree.
So are there any other questions from the commissioners?
So, Alan, you're recommending we go ahead, correct? Do you have
Yes, that's a staff
specific
recommendation.
motion? Do you have a specific motion, or shall I just say we move the approval as described by the town engineer?
I think we have a little bit more formal motion. Does anybody have the paperwork available? Okay. Well, hearing none, I'm going to state something that I cannot make the motion. So if I will read something, then Peter or Andrew or Casey, if you might make a motion to that effect, we'll be going forward. To approve the request of the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation to allow a private sewer installed in 1948 within the Walden Street right-of-way to serve the Walden Pond State Reservation, subject to the provision of as-built record information and a maintenance agreement to the engineering division. So would someone like to make that motion?
I move that we approve the statement by Chairman Terry.
And you were, please.
Peter Wallace.
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
Casey Winslow, I second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, a roll call vote. Those in favor, James Terry, yes. Casey Winslow,
Yes.
Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Peter Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you from the DCR.
thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Okay, Alan, I think the next thing is you're going to give us an update on the water conservation information.
Yes. So as you may recall, we've had some communications as far as the need for implementing. We have a multiple tiered process for water conservation measures during peak demand period. We worked with the chair based on kind of prior practices to impose a lawn watering, 1 day a week lawn watering restriction on June 24th. And past practices that, the chair has been designated to be responsive, working with staff and time sensitive issues, but we'd revisit the declaration with the board, who's the authority under the State of Water Supply Conservation Water Use Restriction bylaw that the town has. With that said, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to revisit, kind of why we're here, refresh the board as far as what the purpose of this is and the need. And I will bring up a presentation. Give me 1 second. See if I can share this screen and kind of walk you through kind of where we are and why this is so important and even more time sensitive as of yesterday. when we've got some information on one of our stations. So I'm going to try pulling this up, see how this works. Can everybody see on the screen? In essence, we can work independently or follow suit with the state. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs has a drought management task force. They typically get together, every summer to monitor trends statewide. And this particular map, if you look at it, will show that there's sort of different levels of drought that have been observed, across the Commonwealth. And it's interesting that they've sort of tried to segment, the Commonwealth into areas that are similar, hydrologically. But you can see up here, this is sort of the Northeast. We report to the Northeast region of DEP. And back in July, they had declared, if I zoom in, I think it was a level 1 mild drought, conditions. And we know from in Concord alone that we had a very wet spring and cool. And it's pretty remarkable the way the weather trends. It then got warmer and drier to the point where we went from one extreme to another. But when we reached out to the chair to determine when is it appropriate to go from a seasonal best management practice. This is a table that we share on the town website. This becomes sort of our Bible as far as where are we in a state of water conservation. This seasonal water demand management plan was approved and adopted by the Public Works Commission a few years ago. The intent is it clearly helps people understand what the water use issues are of concern, generally seasonally speaking, and the level of restrictions or controls. So if you look, every season we recommend best management practices through public outreach, education, and we have sort of this mantra of 1 day a week or 1 inch of water a week. If you've designed your lawn, if it's got the right kind of soils and maintenance, it's not necessarily ideal for everybody, but you can develop a hardy, drought-resistant lawn. It may not always be green, but when it does rain, it'll rebound, pretty well. And that's just sort of pest management practices. And there are no penalties or controls other than education outreach. When we need to go to the next level, which is lawn watering restriction, if you look over here, you can see the various types of activities. So it's very clear for customers to know, what can I do with my flower beds or shrubs when you have this first step, declaration with a restriction, and basically say it's okay. We're really focused on the lawn and turf watering issues. And it's allowed 1 day a week. And when we decided messaging was very important, we adopted you can water on the same day that the solid waste collection occurs in your neighborhood. So it's easy to track and know where it is that you would fit. Basically it allows you to continue to water until or unless there is either more of a dire situation when it comes to the drought, and the state may impose restrictions that have to be abided by through permitting activities, or it could be imposed because of operational constraints. And generally speaking, in the last few years, we have had to go to more restrictive outright water bans. That's where there is no, all use for lawns are prohibited when we've had system failures. And I'll explain that a little bit. But this tool, this particular table, is the Bible. It's online. When people register for new irrigation systems, we send reminders out. We always give them a copy of this so they should understand that there may be a need occasionally to have the board go from voluntary to enforceable 1 day a week restrictions to outright water bans. And if I zoom out, there's actually something here with water emergencies that you can see over here. Oh, sorry. water emergencies where it could be a boil order or something, who knows, more catastrophic. We've never been in this level, but we've contemplated it, and hence it's included in this particular guidance. We then go to why did we need to go to the 1 day a week? Well, it was an operational challenge. And basically, you've seen this table before, but this shows our average day demand water for the year of about 2 million gallons. On this y-axis, these are millions of gallons. Our average day is 2 million, but we understand there's significant seasonal variability. We know that in Concord. We've talked about it many, many times, but you can see in the winter, we have an average day of somewhere around 1.5, 1.6 million gallons a day. We generally consider that for essential use. We know during the winter, people aren't, doing much outdoor, sort of activities. We know during the summer, typical or average, we see about 2.5 million gallons a day. And really our challenge has always been when we get to more peak demands, when we exceed, 3, we get up to 4 million gallons. But this average peak demand, I think, is measured over about 5 days or something. What we've talked about in the past is with NAGOG in operation, people have always wondered sort of the value of NAGOG. We have sort of a peak capacity, for fairly reliably meeting our peak demand during the peak summer period. When we talk about sustainable, we have 6 different sources of supply. If we lose one, and they're all good for about 500,000 gallons each, we want some freeboard, some ability to have maintenance or a failure of a supply without having to literally sort of call in the guards and put out the immediate notice that we need immediate response. The challenge is NAGOG has not been fully realized yet for our full capacity. We are relying heavily on groundwater supplies during the summer, more than we would like. And in essence, what you'll see here in the next table is a trend of our water use from May. Excuse me. You'll see it trending from 1.5 up well over 3.5, 4 million and up to 4 million gallons a day. Down here you see precipitation, and this is 1/2 an inch, that line. So there wasn't much precipitation over a long period of time. You see the temperatures in red, which is the variability of a temperature. And what you see is when we made the star, the declaration for 1 day a week watering, excuse me, on a positive note, you'll see the response in our demand. We had a good response. This is very important. We went from over 3.5 million to as low as 2. So that tells us that there is an opportunity for people to conserve. We don't want to be punitive, but we want them to observe the 1 day a week. And if they do, it gives us the ability to meet supply fairly reliably. What you see is over, from, I think this is the June and through July, we start to see people getting a little less compliant potentially. So you see a trend going up. And just yesterday, we put a reminder out, a code red, that's the reverse 911 call, because 2 things happened. The trend is going up, so we're up at 3 million, over 3 million a day, and we lost a source of supply. One of our wells went down, and it wasn't scheduled to go down, it is inoperable. And when a well goes down, it can be anywhere from 24 hours to 6 weeks to get it back online. So that's where we decided, where we weren't changing the state, but we were and did decide to, excuse me, remind people that we are in 1 day a week restrictions. There are consequences if you don't comply. And in fact, I think what's important is to get compliance and awareness, and we try not to be punitive with it, but I do think, it speaks to the messaging, and then if in need, we go to enforcement, trying to do the best we can to provide the outreach. And so that's basically an overview. I can leave this on or I can bring it back up, but I did want to invite Melissa Simoncini, who has been sort of someone who's really helped in this program in the past, to ask any questions. In fact, Alex Wallstrom, Alex, if you're there and you want to show your face, I just want the board to see the people who are really helping the day-to-day messaging, as well as have worked with the customers and landscapers and everybody else who can answer questions if you have any on sort of the customer response, what our program is for enforcement, any questions you might have. So that's a little bit of a primer on why we need the board to be aware of the declaration, because there are consequences to our customers, and why we have the levels of restrictions that we do. So that's a little bit of the background. So.
Great, thanks, Alan. Thank you guys all for being here, and I won't encourage Alex to show her face at this moment because I know she's in the car trying to be responsible, but she wanted to log in and hear the conversation and get a chance to know the board a little bit. So we have been diligently trying to monitor our customers' water usage. We have actually worked with our GIS specialist to create an app-based system to help track people who are still watering outside their designated day. So we have staff that will go out on days where people aren't supposed to be watering. They actually started this morning for the first time. And they have their iPad, they drive around. People tend to water between the hours of about 4:30 and 7 in the morning. And they'll drive around and they'll see if somebody's watering, they'll stop, they'll log it into the system, take a picture, and then they report back to us in the office. And we take it as a chance to help educate our customers. We want to make sure that, some people don't subscribe to social media, they don't use news and notice. So we're trying to help get them on board, and so that they understand why it's important to conserve water. So first, we'll take back that information that's reported back to us. We'll look at their water use history online. We'll see if they have a registered irrigation system. And what we actually do is we send them a certified letter. And the reason it's important to send it certified is it actually gets people's attention. If you just send them a letter, chances are it'll sit around. It's important enough to get people's attention pretty quickly. And it's our chance, we kind of use it as education and a warning. So for example, in 2016, the last time we were in a situation like this, we sent out over 400 certified letters. It was a lot of work, but in the long run, we only ended up having to issue 2 citations to people. And those were mainly people who just weren't home. Somebody else signed for their mail and they never opened up the initial letter. Those 2 people were just kind of like, "Ooh, sorry," and then paid it and moved on. So we use it really as a chance not to be punitive, but really to get people on board and understand the system. We do have a lot of people. One of our biggest challenges is that we have a number of private wells in town who aren't subject to the water use restrictions. While they're encouraged to minimize their water, we don't have any mechanism to encourage them to comply. So unfortunately, we have a little bit of the challenge of the perception that we're not enforcing because they see their neighbors watering and they don't really understand it. Let's see. I think that's about what, the overall gist. Does anybody have any questions about our response or our outreach?
You might encourage the people who have the wells to put up a little sign that says private well. And then also I was curious to know what our expected time is to bring that inoperable well back online. Thanks.
So a couple things on the, I'll answer the inoperable well, and then I'll go back to the signage. And again, there's a real challenge in perception and optics, and we get it. But what's really important is we want to make sure that people have drinking water and fire protection. That's the purpose, and at the same time, be fair. And it's not completely universally fair, but I think if we, as the program evolves, we're going to get more and more sophisticated so that we can be fairer and fair. It's a resource intensive task to try and keep everybody 100% accountable. But we know that's an interest. So that's sort of always a goal. The wells, Melissa, maybe you speak to that, first, and then I'll talk about the well itself, the private wells.
Sure. There is kind of it's a catch-22 almost, as far as, having people put up signage. There are some people who will honestly put up signage, and there are other people who will put up signage even if they don't have a private well, in hopes that they can just water willy-nilly. So is there a right answer in that arena? I don't really know. But if somebody wants to put up a private well sign to not receive comments from their neighbor, by all means. We do keep track. If we know somebody has a private well, or we call someone, or we send out a notice and somebody calls us back and says they have a private well, we'll do a little bit of research, and then we'll put a note in their file. And if, we encourage people, if, they see somebody watering and they think they're being non-compliant, let us know, because we don't have our eyes and ears everywhere, and we'll put them on the list to help educate. We'll ask the people, okay, so please provide us with a specific address and some kind of notes on when they're watering, because we can't provide outreach to these people just on, let's say hearsay or, a report. We have to actually go and observe it for ourselves before we go and do the actual outreach to that person. So we just say, if you see something and you have questions, give us a call and we'll investigate if we can.
Peter, I do want to add, I think with the town's interest in sustainability, sort of broader interests, whether it's energy, electric, water, wastewater, there'll be an opportunity for these conversations. And I know statewide there's been issues as far as legislation to look at private well use and how that can be better controlled. We really have to work within the limits of our authority. And obviously water, wastewater, we can't go into private property and dictate the use of a private well or a private septic system for that matter. So, there are some technicalities that we have to be mindful of, but basically the messaging is, when we're in a drought and the town is doing what it can to, protect and preserve, the natural resources, it could be more universally applied. But that's on the radar. We talked with the sustainability coordinator in Concord to, talk these issues through, but we also have to skate in our lane, and we know that. But to go to the mechanical issue, the problem with our infrastructure is these wells during the summer, we talk about, reliability and resiliency, are running 24 hours, 7 days a week. And, when we have the ability to shut them down or throttle them back, it's a good thing. That's why NAGOG has always been so important, to relieve this burden that we've been putting on the wells for the past 20 years. But this is one well where it's, pumps, motors, shafts, the hardware associated with these things are, $5,000 to $10,000 for each component. And so, and it's often a question of, in this particular case, we had a specialist come in, check it on site to see if we could recover quickly. When we realized that they could not, it was like bringing the mechanic in to take a look at your car. We realized it had to go back to the shop. We knew it was going to be at least a week. And we got a report back literally today that says they could do something, with their machine shop and refurbish. It may not be what we would do off season when we had more flexibility, but we're looking to get this back within a week or two, based on we don't have to replace a pump or motor. And some of these, especially with COVID times, the lead time for some of the industry equipment is longer and longer. So we are looking at a refurbishment to restore us within a week or two. And I think the combination of the reminder to people to conserve, we're still allowing 1 day of watering a week, so you can get through, through this period of time. But we really envision the 1 day a week is going to be sustained through the summer, regardless. But right now, there's the risk if we had another upset, we quickly have to escalate from 1 day a week to a complete ban. And that's why we have the provision to work with the chair, through the board, to make sort of real-time decisions if it's necessary. And we report back to the board to explain where we are and why. And I think that was the purpose of sort of putting this back on your radar. I did not expect when we put it on the agenda, we'd have a legitimate mechanical problem. That, prior to this, it was more of just hot, dry weather with use that had no control other than best practice. So.
What do you think about having a backup spare, which would be sized to the biggest size of our motors, and put a variable speed drive on that? And then you could, when needed, just put it in immediately for any pump that failed.
Yeah, it's ironic. A lot of facilities may have MWRA, very, very large system with not a lot of, relatively speaking, facilities. So they have the luxury of these spares and redundancy built into each of their facilities. Each station we have has different design criteria. And if you don't use a pump or motor, you just put it on the shelf, over years, it may or may not work when you really need it. But Peter, it's a question we always figure out, where do you put in that redundancy into a system? And it's a real challenge when you have a number of small sources that are all uniquely designed. But you're on the right track. Again, NAGOG will give us 1.5 times the capacity of any of our existing groundwater supplies, which is very important. And that would then allow us to use the groundwater to some degree as a backup, or at least have some on reserve for this very purpose.
How many private wells do you have, do you think, are out there?
So the town, I don't know if we have a number. The numbers are maintained through the Board of Health. You need to put a permit through the Board of Health. And Melissa, I don't know if we have a number. We would maintain it, but do you have any idea?
We do log them into our GIS system. As of a couple of years ago, we made a big push to get them in there. And I don't know if they're private irrigation wells or private wells, but the number 500 to 600 kind of rings a bell out there. But those could be not necessarily hooked up to an irrigation system. They could be, monitoring wells that were installed on site. But that 500 to 600 number rings a bell for some reason.
There are also, 5% of our, we serve 95% of Concord residents. So some residents survive on their private well. Now they have their own built-in incentive not to overpump those, because during a drought, the last thing they need is to lose, potable water, let alone, for irrigation. So they have their own built-in controls, and they would know where they have, history of issues. But we'd have to be mindful that we do know who's on a private well for potable purposes, as part of the database that Melissa was talking about.
So are there other questions from commission members? Okay, I noted that Terry Ackerman was interested in making a comment or a question.
Thank you. I'm Terry Ackerman, 89 East Bridge Road. I'm the liaison from the select board. And I would, of course, like to make this announcement to remind people again at the next meeting, the next select board meeting, that we're on 1 day per week. And Alan, in your presentation, you had some very good graphics You said they're on the website. I did go into the Public Works section of the website and I'm having trouble finding it. I went into the water section. If you could prominently post those graphics, I think it would be a big help, or I must be looking in the wrong place. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Did you know the seasonal demand management graphic is prominently displayed? The trends, we don't, because they're time sensitive. We don't have a daily demand. So Melissa, maybe you know there's some more information that maybe I'm missing.
The one I can't find is the one that had the green, and now we're in yellow one day, and you know, and what you can do, what you can't do. I can't find that graph.
Okay.
Right, and that's a good point, because being a person who frequents the website, I know where to easily locate it, and I can make it a little bit more prominent. If you see one of the green, yellow, or red signs that talk about the water use restrictions, the same signs that you would see around town, we have them at like 11 different locations. If you click on any one of those, it will bring you to that table. But I can also put it as part of that slideshow when you go to either the water and sewer homepage, the concordma.gov/conservation, which is kind of everything about water use restrictions, and then also the concordma.gov/irrigation. I'll put it as part of those slideshows.
And even concordma.gov Public Works. When you first go on that, maybe it could be like it should be pretty prominent and pretty out there.
Great. We'll look into the Public Works page. Thanks.
In that regard, then, is there a commissioner ready to make a motion regarding the declaration of the water conservation effort?
I move we declare it. Peter Wallace.
Okay, well, does anybody have the?
I have the check. I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, that'd be great.
So, I, Andrew Boardman, move that the Public Works Commission retroactively declare a state of water supply conservation effective June 24th, 2020, and institute a 1 day per week outdoor watering restrictions with watering permitted before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. consistent with the seasonal demand management plan added April 13th, 2017, which shall remain in effect until conditions allow, and further provide Public Works Commission Chair with the authority to increase the level of severity or rescind any related state of water supply conservation, which will then be voted on at a future Public Works Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Second, Peter Wallace.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, a roll call vote. James Terry, yes. Casey Winslow,
Yes.
Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Peter Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you. Alan, do you have a sense as to the likelihood that we would move to the next most restrictive or the most restrictive area?
So if people respond, this is what's fairly remarkable. We know they can do it, and they've done it in the past. The challenge with messaging is, when do you stop reaching them, which is why we did that kind of code red. If they respond and weather helps and we can get this well back online, it could be, we don't need to change anything. There's no escalation. If we had a problem at another source, and it can happen, because these are mechanical systems that are literally running presently almost at 100% 24/7. There's another problem. We then may not have the luxury of hoping people are complying and watering 1 day a week. That was when we would escalate it to a complete ban, and that would result in 50% response, and that may be enough to keep us with flowing water and fire protection. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I know the weather turned a little bit even today, which is always kind of a good thing. But I tell you, when I lose sleep is when I know we should probably ratchet up to the next level. It's a good trigger. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
The next thing I think we have, Ellen, is our director's report.
Okay, great. We'll start through, and I'm just looking at the, hello, Alex, we're good. We've got this is Alex Wallstrom, who just, she is the new Senior Environmental Regulatory Coordinator for Concord Water and Sewer. Alex is going to be doing a lot of the legwork on the communication, messaging, and compliance activities. So, Alex, I see you made it home safely. Thank you. And we're going to go to the director's report, where I will bring on, depending on the issues, this is an opportunity. I know staff is with us. We'll walk through some of the projects. We have a nice little PowerPoint that I will share and walk through. Let me make sure I can get us to share this screen. Go to PowerPoint and do it. Let's see. From the beginning. It's always a good place to start. Can you see the PowerPoint on your screens? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So first and foremost, the town moderator has been diligently trying to figure out a means and methods to have town meeting in a way that is kind of responsive to the COVID challenges of the social distancing, juggling with the select board and the finance committee. A lot of challenges as far as the number of articles, how they can present this information in a transparent, open way, and knowing that town meeting generally is a multi-evening event. So they're working hard to try and streamline it this year. They are presently sort of looking at an outdoor venue up at the Concord Carlisle High School. The details are remain to be kind of completed as far as how it's going to be conducted, but there's going to be a series of hearings, almost abbreviated hearings in August, so that people can get refreshed and reminded as far as the various articles of interest. Because it's a little bit of a moving target at this point, I do know that the schedule that's been shared with me is August 17th. There's going to be a joint select board and finance committee public hearing where they're going to be talking about the town budget and capital plans. Obviously, the impact of COVID on the town budget is huge. So I think the focus is going to be, where are we and where do we think we're going to be going? That's of August 17th. The August 18th, the Finance Committee is going to have another public hearing to talk to, regarding Concord Public Schools and the high school, as well as a citizen bus petition. There's going to be hearings from the planning board. There's a number of zoning, and we talked a little earlier, if you recall, back in the spring about some of the zoning articles that are of interest. So they're doing an abbreviated kind of repeat, I think, hearings and updates. I will get back to the board as far as what the expectations are from Public Works. I think my understanding is the enterprise articles are not going to be revisited. The FinCom hearing we had was sufficient, but there may be some issues that Public Works should be at least tracking, especially with the capital and debt plan, our roads program, that sort of thing. So we'll sort of be tracking that as we go. But again, because it's fluid, I don't have more information to share, and I want to present information that is, inaccurate. But basically, I can tell you that there is an earnest effort to make September 13th work. That's a Sunday afternoon with a rain date of September 14th in the event that was necessary. And I believe that might be in the evening. But again, the idea is to put as much as we can into a consent calendar, have some discussion before the meeting, town meeting, and stay tuned. And I know the moderator is providing updates through the web as frequently as possible. So that's what I have just as far as kind of an awareness. I don't have a lot of answers for the board at this point, but just sort of an update. That's what I wanted to share with you folks. So don't know if you have, let me go back to stop share. I'm going to go back to the presentation. I'm sorry, I got lost in my own notes. So let me go. So that's actually, can you see, are we back to the town meeting? First slide?
No, we're back to the pictures of all of us.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to the, go back here. Let me share. Let me go back here, share. It's usually a multi-step process. How are we doing? Are we back to the beginning? Can you see? Okay, great. All right. With that said, Melissa Simoncini, can you make yourself available and sort of walk through on some of the work you've been doing on kind of the environmental compliance activities with your new role as the environmental program systems program coordinator?
All right, sure. Part of my responsibility now is to facilitate some of the important I won't call it safety, but environmental compliance training for the town. So we've partnered with Woodard and Current to help make sure that we're on track and all of our training is up to date. So we recently conducted a live via Zoom training of Right to Know and SBCC. So essentially oil spill prevention and countermeasure control plan. And we had about, I would say for this training, we had about 7 Public Works employees plug in, take the live Zoom training. We recorded it, and then we are working with our HR department, who has purchased a module for our Cornerstone system, where employees can then log on at their convenience, view the training, and then sign off that they completed the training. Why this is so wonderful is previously it was an hour-long training where all of our crews had to be off the street for it, and we would have a couple sessions. But this way, having it be remote, number one, we're able to be socially distant, and number two, if there's a water main break or an important thing that needs to be accomplished, the crew can take it when they have some downtime. Either it's raining out and they aren't able to go out and mow or do whatever, or have some free time. And this is a training module that the entire town will be using for all sorts of different trainings, whether it's, etc. So we are kind of the town guinea pigs. We're the first to use it, and people are getting up to speed. And so far it's been a little challenging, but it's been well received trying to do it. Next up will be hazardous waste management training, which we completed the live training of last week, and we'll be rolling that training out as soon as most of the employees have been able to complete this first training. And the other little nugget is with there being more residents staying in town and trying to be outside more, there's been some challenges with waste management. And waste management, I don't mean the company specifically, I mean people getting rid of their waste in a responsible way. So it was mainly at Emerson Field and Rideout Park in West Concord, where we were getting a lot of people throwing just bags of household trash into the recycling bins, which would lead to the recycling having to be disposed of as regular waste. So we worked with Waste Management, our waste hauling vendor, to have some of the recycling carts modified. And since that time, we've also installed a couple more trash receptacles, so that if people do have large trash that are unable to bring home, there's a place for it. We've also upped the frequency that we are removing the waste from the parks to help meet the increased demand.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Let's see, Steve Dukran, do you want to sort of come so we can speak a little bit to some of the engineering initiatives?
Yes, thank you, Alan. First project I want to review is the Cambridge Turnpike Improvement Project. And since the last reporting cycle, we made quite a bit of progress, which I'll talk about. The curbing, sidewalk, and driveway changes proposed in the project have all been made. And we are planning final paving of the sidewalks and the driveways within the next couple of weeks. The work has started, but should be done in the next couple of weeks. If you go down to the project area, you'll see 3 brand new crosswalks at the Cambridge Turnpike and Lexington Avenue intersection near the museum. So those crosswalks have been built. There's curbing and across the street and brick in a herringbone pattern in between. They're not opened up yet. They're plated because the jointing sand is yet to be applied, and that will be done probably by Friday or early next week. We've also installed, in the first picture, you've seen the guardrail and the pedestrian rail. 90% of the guardrail has been installed for the section of the project beginning near the museum and towards the Crosby Pond area where there's still active construction. All the underground work, including drainage, National Grid gas, CMLP, and other underground facilities have been installed in that section, which in that area, we commonly refer to the different project sections. Section 1 is up by the museum area. Section 2 is the bridge near the farm stand. And then section 3 is from the bridge to Crosby Pond. And so section 4 is the Crosby Pond culvert, which is still under active construction. So we have prepared the pavement for final paving in those first 3 sections. And final paving is scheduled for sections 1 and 3 on the 28th of this month, and the bridge area on the 3rd of August. Today we've started with the public notification. We have staff going out and putting door hangers, informing the folks in the street that there's going to be paving and interruptions to the accesses and travel on those particular days. So what's left, the biggest part that's left is the culvert work down at Crosby Pond. The concrete is pretty much in place. The 2 culverts, large culverts, are in place with the head walls. The wing walls, large concrete sections at the end of the culvert, also in place. We are working on stabilizing those, so that will probably be in another few weeks. If you go out there, you'd see retaining walls being added along the edges of the road, and those retaining walls, like was done at the bridge, are for raising the road elevation in the wet area, so the road will get a couple of feet over what was existing. So that work is being done right away. There is a water line that we're going to be putting underground using directional drilling. That's scheduled for next week. It's a pretty large water main. It's 14 inches in diameter, the pipe is. And so that's scheduled for next week. If everything goes well in this last section of the project, we are looking at completing by September and having all the punch list work done before the end of the year and the project to be completely done. Again, that's if everything falls in place. So that's it for the Cambridge Turnpike. What we have there On the slide is some examples of outdoor restaurant dining that's we've been having. The town has been getting requests for permitting. So our involvement in engineering division is to ensure that these laid out properly when it comes to safety, or when it comes to access and pedestrian especially, as well as vehicular travel within their, either within their parking lots, or if there's if any of these are extending to the right of way, to make sure we have proper access and safety in all of the spaces. At this point, I think 10 or 11 of them have been approved, and we have a couple of requests that are current and being worked on. The slide shows our crack sealing program for this year. That work is done. We did about 5 miles of streets. This is an important program. When you crack seal roads, they do add a couple of years of life to the road, and it reduces the deterioration rate. You cannot crack seal every road. You have to choose the roads that still have significant amount of life left in them. And these are recommended by the pavement management program that we use. These slides show some of the progress we've made with our mill and fill program. As you may have heard, our major roads program is going to be delayed because of the debt funding that has to be approved through the town meeting, which will be later this year. So our major program is going to be put off for a bit. In the meantime, we are trying to see if we can maintain the roads with some smaller measures. So we've selected areas that are that just simply patching the potholes wouldn't be beneficial. So we're milling off the bad pavement and putting in an 1.5 inches to 2 inches of new pavement. Will give it some life while we wait for a major roads program. There is one section on Ornac, a pretty long section that there are too many bad spots, so we decided to mill that entire length. It's about a 1,200-foot section, and so that is pretty much a brand new segment. But this work has all been done for the season, and we have gotten some good compliments in that venture. We do have some funding left from the Chapter 90, and so we're going to see if we can utilize that money this year to do a couple of streets, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. We want to at least get some streets done while we wait for a major program to be funded. I believe that's all for engineering.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Aaron Klosko, are you on deck?
Yes.
Speak to the highway grounds park tree activities.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron McCloskey. I'm the Highway and Grounds Superintendent. So I'll take you through the slides that are relative to my division. Our spring and summer maintenance programs are in full swing. These are some of the highlights. I provided some more details in the Highway Grounds Fleet and Cemetery section of the Director's Report for July. This is a photo of the crew rebuilding a catch basin on Maple Street. This is one of 6 that we have rebuilt during the month of June. You can see we do full reconstruction. Our crews are quite skilled in what they do. A lot of towns will contract out this work. In Concord, we're able to complete a lot of it in-house, and with our skilled crew and our equipment, it's kept in really good condition. And you can see this is one where we have a laborer in the trench, in the rebuilding the catch basin with block and concrete, equipment operator on scene, and another employee mixing concrete, and we're able to rebuild the catch basin within a couple of days. This is a photo of the trackless machine with the roadside mower attachment attached. to the front of the machine, performing roadside maintenance. In town, this is one of the summer maintenance programs. Unfortunately, this machine is over 10 years old. It's on deck for replacement. It's listed for replacement in FY 21. The capital equipment was part of the Public Works capital equipment requests. Currently it's down. We're experiencing a lot of problems with the machine this season, and it's been down more than it's been running. So we're a little behind with our roadside mowing program. But we have a really good fleet supervisor and master mechanic on board, actively working to get parts. One of our issues is the parts come from Canada for this machine, so we're struggling to get those. It's kind of extended some downtime. In turn, we're sending out crews. You may have seen some crews out working this past Saturday throughout Concord. We're running some extra overtime to catch up with some of the roadside trimming manually. Unfortunately, we don't have our MCI crew or seasonal or summer help labor. So we're trying to run some overtime after hours to try to get caught up a little bit. This next photo is a photo of some of the park and tree specialists over here taking a tree that was the fallen public shade tree that and chipping it and clearing some debris in that area. And that actually looks like a photo from a trail in town. So we are actively maintaining the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Crews are there this week. If you've been out and clearing and trimming alongside the trail, we'll run and clear that a few times a season, and we are inspecting that weekly as well for debris, trees down, trash, etc., or any other safety issues that might come up. This season, we've been very busy with rebuilding the baseball and softball fields throughout town. This is a photo of the crew laying in the new outfield mix in Rideout Baseball Park. Our baseball field, there's 2 baseball fields and 1 softball field at Rideout. We work to remove all the old clay material, bring in some new material, edge it, rebuild the mounds, set new plates, and really work hard to get those fields in pristine condition so that the town can use them, and also that Concord, Carlisle, youth baseball and youth softball, very active groups and very involved, and work closely with those organizations to try to meet their needs and keep them in elite status. It's another photo of the park and tree crew out working. This is at Ripley Field. They have a very nice baseball complex at Ripley, and this is a morning track material. Again, our crew has excavated out all of the old clay material, and we laid in new kind of engineered clay material this year to kind of improve playability of those fields. So this is them laying in the material. So, and I encourage anybody to visit these fields and take a look and hopefully be able to use them or observe one of the teams playing a game.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Up on the water sewer projects or initiatives, I think it's worth noting. This is, fortunately, with the enterprise funds, we've been able to move forward with some of our capital improvements according to plan. Many of our projects, there is concept, design, funding, and construction happen over the course of a couple of years. This is something that has been slated for replacement. This is the Peter Spring, Arrowhead, Prescott Road neighborhood. It's interesting because unless you've actually sort of ever gone in off of Bedford Street, it really opens up to a fairly large neighborhood. What's interesting is there's sort of one road in and out, and in fact our water main sort of follows the same route, or has historically. But one of the improvements that we're adding to this particular replacement initiative is to, if you can see over here, there's actually a water main that sort of extends up towards the wastewater treatment plant and loops through Great Meadow. By making this connection, town-owned land, it's not an easement, it's actually town-owned land. We're able to sort of create 2 connections into the neighborhood. And the board's familiar with the whole concept of looping. In this case, you have lots of loops, but you only have this one feed into the entire neighborhood. So this is a real sort of a benefit, something we've sort of been looking at doing since I've been here. It's just a question of when do you get to the neighborhood? Well, 24 years later, we're here. So finally, time to realize something that had been contemplated for a long time. But it's a large neighborhood, a lot of number of homes. We're sensitive to the fact that more people are home these days, but we are continuing to move based on our schedule because we need to knock this neighborhood out with new water main replacement before we can proceed to another area. And again, it's phased. We have over 130 miles of main. If we do a half mile to a mile a year, that's pretty good. And in essence, this is, I think this particular project, it includes a Potter Road as well. It's about 8,000 feet of pipe we have scheduled. And then it's coordinated in part, the design with engineering division and the roads program. And some of the funding that they'll be looking for FY21, we use to come in. The water main is replaced, all the, any drainage, any underground utilities. And in the fall, create a base coat and, a base course, and then follow up next year with a top coat and, complete the neighborhood. And so that's the benefit of working within one umbrella with Public Works, but also, light plant as well. So,
What's the expected life?
100 years, somewhere between 70 and 125 years, depending on. I've often said some of the old pipe is pretty good. This is not, the better pipe, but we have a 1906 pipe. It would probably be best if we cleaned and lined it because of the integrity of the pipe. Others that are 70 years old, may be compromised. And, we've had a number of breaks. And really the pipe is one component, but each intersection here is multiple valves. And valves that don't get operated regularly can become problematic. And so, the whole idea of a valve is to isolate where you have disturbance. But, the real issue, Peter, is we need to be vigilant with promoting and highlighting the fact that, well, we can get away with a year or two of not aggressive replacement. It will catch up. And in essence, we're trying to keep track. I'm looking right now, our next water sewer superintendent, when we get them on board, is going to be really looking at our asset management plan, so we can sort of, much like the engineering division looks at the roads program, you try and develop something on our water and wastewater side that's similar to that. So I think that might be where you were going with that question. Right.
Sure. I mean, you might put in place annual valve opening and closing just to see what you got.
Yeah, it's part of what we do is sort of critical intersections and things. We do check that, but it's all part of the asset management. And also dovetailing what we talked about with our GIS program. In fact, I'll go to the next image. Speaking of asset management, this is the cleaning and TV inspection of the sewer mains, where unlike the water, these are predominantly gravity, and they flow anywhere from, they can be a couple inches to, half pipe to a full pipe, depending on the size. But you can get equipment inside and you can do various inspections. Right now, you may recall we did some smoke testing to give us an indication of connects with stormwater or storm drains. We completed that earlier. Now we're actually doing visual inspections inside the pipe to identify leaks. A lot of our infrastructure is very old. On the sewer side, generally speaking, depending on the problem, the technology of the day is a liner, which is good because it's less invasive. It doesn't require trench work. There may be areas where you have to replace a manhole or that sort of thing, but if they find a pipe that's in just repair, if it's a relatively reasonable opening, you can possibly put a liner in. So is levels of where do you spend the money, and then prioritize the TV inspection, will inform, kind of where we put the capital improvements on the sewer system. But we have a third-party contractor who does this work regularly. we bring them in, and we're really sort of getting this program going this summer. And again, hoping it's going to be realized into probably more capital intensive work in the future. But this is the assessment work that is going on as we speak. Part of the improvements, we've talked about the low road pump station, Aspet pump station. One thing that's interesting is I think I've talked about the changes and challenges that we have. This is the forms that are being set up behind 135 Kais Road for a 250 kilowatt emergency generator. It's less than ideal from an operator perspective because it's not right next to the facility, but it will also be used to accommodate emergency power for 135 operations. That's where the water sewer garage is located, and water sewer admin and highway admin is in this building. So this will be a dual purpose generator, but just the scale of this alone, the pad for this generator is larger than the footprint of the existing pump station. It's just kind of ironic, but in any event, those are some of the highlights. Excuse me, I think that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Also included in the improvement of the pump station, we're actually putting a new bypass system at Lowell Road in the event there was emergency or catastrophic failure of the equipment inside the facility. We can bring pumps to the site and use this bypass that's being installed so that we can literally in an emergency situation, eliminate the need if there was a catastrophic failure or damage to the pump station itself. We still be able to convey wastewater, from the collection system to the treatment plant through Lowell Road. So this is an important improvement that's part of the project. We can kind of see the scale of work when we talk about a pump station and externalities. So that's kind of where we are with the pump station. So that's basically the director's report. You got staff here. If you have any specific questions or your comments, I think.
Well, let me start it off. I think the pictures that Steve had on Cambridge Turnpike are fantastic. And if you could put maybe a couple of those pictures and some narrative on the website, that might be of interest to citizens, since that's a project that's obviously taken longer and has been more of a disruption than people had thought in the beginning. Mm-hmm. The other question is, in your report, Alan, there was something was called Full Circle for Public Works, and I didn't understand what that was.
Full Circle is a permit tracking software that the town is looking or has purchased to streamline the various elements of each department and division, what a developer or homeowner may need to do if they're going to do something that, you pull on this string and I didn't know I needed a building permit or electric permit, or there was a water permit or a street opening permit. So this is a automated system that would allow a customer, it could be developers, it could be a homeowner, to go into a portal to town that would allow them to sort of describe the work, understand the various permit needs, and basically it's the full circle of municipal permitting activity that is integrated and will streamline a lot of inefficiencies that are presently realized between departments, paper trails, emails, phone calls, missed standards, or we've seen it in water sewer routinely. We're going to probably revisit some situations where people did work or a former owner did, and we may have a non-conforming utility that wasn't picked up because the building department didn't know this configuration existed. This is going to allow us to start capturing those and really tracking them in a way that's efficient. So that's what the Full Circle package is. It's really being utilized already by the fire department for burn permits, for instance. The real challenge we've had is some of the staffing changes townwide have had an impact on the implementation schedule, as well as the COVID sort of challenge. In a perfect world, if we were 1 year ahead of time, we'd be that much better suited for COVID, but we're not. So we're really working, division and department sort of modules to try and figure out, okay, if you want a water sewer service, how can you do it electronically, and how is it going to be tracked, or a street opening permit from the engineering division, or a request for tree removal. All these components are ways that we'd be kind of informed of an interest, and anybody who's interested would start getting guidance, even just reading about the process before they're just, discovery well into it. That's the intent. You're on mute, Jim.
Yeah. I thought any other questions from the commissioners, comments? Peter?
Yeah, I note that we may only have 6 months left of the current EPA, and if there's anything we're waiting for the EPA to rule on, we might consider jamming it through all political force, all consultants, and try and move it through, because we may not have another chance. Do we have anything pending?
It's interesting you say that. I will just go off script a little bit. We have been informed through the NIPDs, that's the National Pollution Elimination Discharge System permit. That's wastewater, and now stormwater through what we call there's another acronym, stormwater is being permitted through EPA. There's co-permittees in Massachusetts, EPA and DEP. And we have been informed by EPA, actually we haven't, DEP has been informed by EPA that EPA is going its own route, and they're going to accelerate permit activity through EPA in Region 1 aggressively. So, Peter, that observation or comment, whether EPA will be here in 6 months or not, they're working aggressively to, they have a huge backlog of these permits, and we've been sort of informed that they may be moving aggressively to issue these. It's odd because historically you've always worked with both EPA and DEP, so it may introduce some wrinkles and unintended consequences, impacts on us. So whether we're getting permission or getting hit heavier and quicker, I don't know, remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm. With regard to waste management, I recall last year there was a lot of interest in what's happening to our recyclables. I noticed that we continue to ping them, and I'd recommend continuing to push them to do something with the recyclables as opposed to just putting them in the landfill. And, I don't know if it makes sense for us to join with other communities in that regard, but I know that there's interest in the town that we are doing something.
Melissa, you might want to speak to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so our recyclables are not ending up in the landfill, thankfully. We still have markets for most of our recycling here. The one thing that there isn't a market for and isn't a way to recycle anymore are those the cartons, whether they're milk cartons, bean cartons, soup cartons. Those are the main thing there's no longer a way to recycle or a market for recycling in the Northeast. There is some markets still in kind of the Mississippi River states, but not on the coastal states. As far as our paper, most of our paper stays local. Most of our cardboard stays relatively local. Our plastics, all of our clear plastics definitely get recycled. The glass, there's not too much of a meltdown and direct reuse market for the glass. That's the one thing that is not just thrown in the landfill. It is crushed and mixed into either roadway aggregate or used as roadway within the landfills, kind of as a base for the large heavy machinery to go on. Our styrofoam that we collect at the landfill goes to Conigliaro and actually gets made into some of that crown molding that we have out there. So that's kind of a fun thing. And our Christmas lights get broken down, and believe it or not, there's actually a lot of reusable metals in Christmas lights that get recycled. So, you know, it doesn't just sit there. Is the market super strong like it used to be? There's not as much of a commodity to it. It's going to cost to recycle. So we really have to switch from the mentality of recycling is the way to go, because it's more expensive than putting it in the landfill. It's a better thing to do, but really the best thing to do is just reduce the amount of waste that we have. And over the next few years, we'll definitely be working to kind of start a little bit more of an educational campaign heading in that direction.
Yeah, I think it was the League of Conservation Voters, perhaps, that is interested in that, and they would probably be interested to know it costs more to recycle than it does to put in the landfill. Just they just happen to be interested.
The League of Women Voters?
I think it's Conservation, League of Conservation Voters, but it could be League of Women Voters.
I'll circle back with you offline to make sure we're talking the same group, and I'll make sure to kind of reach out. And
I don't actually know what the group is, but I remember I had to speak in front of town meeting at 11:30 at night to address questions about recycling.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Happy to do it, but you know, I'm just reinforcing the fact that there is, you know, from some quarters within the town, interest in that. So, you know, based on what you're saying right now, I feel very good about what we're doing. Sounds terrific. Congratulations. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. Happy to help.
Also, I think it would be great to get updates on camera security for our facilities and internet security. Two issues that I've been pretty interested in, and I thought before I get off the board, I'll find out where we are.
The security systems we are working on, we're in the midst of an upgrade, primarily on our SCADA system. SCADA is the technology that allows us, it's basically supervisory control and data acquisition system that allows us to monitor, it just as the acronym stands for, a lot of our water, wastewater facilities. And we are working closely with a third-party security consultant who was retained by the town and working closely with the light plant to develop the protection and backbone of the town information system. I can tell you, Peter, well, not an expert, we have experts plugged in, and I am challenged in that they are very judicious, but the pace is slower than I would like. But I guess in a positive note, we're conforming with the security experts, you know, who the town has, you know, sort of procured. So that's on the, you know, very sensitive, you know, kind of controls and operations of our facilities, many water, wastewater facilities we have. And when it comes to the other security, I'm working closely with the townhouse to expand our surveillance opportunities. And I won't go into the details, but we're not the only department. And again, like we do with other issues that are shared by other departments, we're trying to standardize that. I will say it's been a little bit thwarted with COVID. Again, I've got the money. I just need the resources to get this in place. And it's inclusive of our facilities at Keyes Road if I can secure the funding for that.
Great. Thank you.
Peter, thank you for asking that question and highlighting it, because it is important and it's not lost on me. And I think, you know, the community, you know, deserves that. So thank you.
So are there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, are there any public comments or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
And who was that?
Peter Wallace.
I know, Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, I get it. I'll get it eventually.
I know, it's a new way of doing things.
As soon as
Okay,
you have
so
it
we'll-
mastered, Peter, you're going to be off the board. That's how it works.
That's the way it works.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Jim Terry, yes. Casey Winslow,
Yes.
Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Peter Wallace.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to everybody.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
summer.
We'll find out about our August and September meetings in the future.
Yes. Yes.